Renee's YouTube channel is a great place to find simple exercises to make you feel better after sitting too much or not moving enough or whatever. She's quite philosophical and has a valuable perspective on everything from breathing to overall health. I've even used some of her exercises myself, even before I knew I would be speaking with her. That's how you know that Dr. Renee Ostertag has permeated YouTube. Renee, thank you so much for joining me today. I am curious. Just when I watch your channel, you seem to have a very interesting perspective on things. So you have this exercise, among other exercises, called seaweed arms, where you kind of put your arms above your head and you move like your arms are made of seaweed. I did that, and it actually was super helpful. And I know it sounds ridiculous to some people listening, but it's like, I don't know, it just loosens me up, and I am not used to moving like that, but it was very easy, and like you can't injure yourself doing it. So I'm curious, where did that come from?
Oh, great question. It came from need. You know, I was sitting in a meeting one day with two other physical therapist buddies of mine, and we geek out about the mind-body connection and how everything plays out through the body. And we just share little trade secrets. And I had been in a full day of sitting telehealth. It was a 5:00 meeting with two other people like me, and we were just sharing ideas. We're like, reciprocal movement in the spine. I bet we could apply it up to the arms. Let's reverse gravity. Let's have some blood flow going the other way. So the three of us did it together, and we're like, whoa, this feels fantastic. And so we created it on our own and just decided to call it Seaweed Arms, because seaweed is a really cool structure because it's rooted and it's strong, and yet it's incredibly flexible. And I love the idea of embodying the energy of strong yet flexible. And when I have that association in my brain that, wow, my arms, the way that I actually do work in the world is strong and flexible. And then to connect to a felt sense of that and living that, like even just talking about it, I get so jazzed about what we can learn to do to change the experience that we have in the world through regulating our nervous system.
And yeah, I like the kind of symbolism of being like seaweed, being strong but flexible. And it is kind of abstract to think about it that way. But I think, you clearly think deeply about a lot of the exercises you do. I think when a lot of people go to school, they just kind of memorize things and learn things by the book, which is okay. But you seem like you kind of you think about the metaphysics of it all, and you are kind of asking big questions. And that's one thing I always liked about your channel. So it sounds like you work with lots of other physicians, like in the same building. You're collaborating a lot, sharing information. I think a lot of questions that people have when it comes to YouTube channels is kind of like, so what is your business like outside of your channel? So you're collaborating with other physicians. Clearly you meet with clients. Like, what is that like for you?
So I come from a very traditional physical therapy background where I've spent a lot of years in a clinic working with patients and doctors and other therapists. And we're trying to support patients in recovering from pain, injury, illness, rehab, whatever. As you mentioned and astutely saw, I am a deep thinker. And a decade plus into being a physical therapist, I realized I was really underprepared to deal with the emotional, mental, relational, social, spiritual side of people. Like, people aren't just an elbow that needs rehabbing. So I learned more. I studied more. I ended up becoming a psychotherapist. I've done all kinds of training in spirituality and trauma and neuroscience and you name it. And so I've put it all together. So now I have my own private practice, and I work with patients one-on-one. I train other therapists how to become more embodied and regulated in their own mind-body relationship. And my YouTube channel started, so that's kind of my main thing. I speak, I teach, and I have one-on-one clients. in my own office, and there's other people around in the office building that are massage therapists and art teachers and lawyers and whatever. But my YouTube channel started because a friend of mine at the start of the pandemic said, Renee, you should make some more videos for YouTube. People need what you have to say right now. And I said, no, thanks. And she pushed, and she's a very stubborn German girlfriend of mine. And I'm glad she pushed because it ended up being something really fun and supportive for me, as a way to get my work out to more people. And I love what I do. And people get to experience the fruits of it as they so choose to participate. So I like that. That's my world.
Right on. So how has starting this channel affected your practice? Like you have your website, greentreemind.com, where people can schedule one-on-one counseling with you, and you have like coaching courses, things of that sort. But like how has YouTube affected your practice? Because a lot of people, they kind of want YouTube to augment what they're already doing. So how has YouTube done that for you?
I would say, and oftentimes I think in a very visual kind of way, like at the start of 2020, my practice was like this big and my reach was this big. And I have like maybe a 6-inch circle that I'm holding out in front of me with my hands. YouTube took that practice and made it like 2.5 feet wide. So it greatly enhanced my reach, not only in the state of Colorado where I live, but all over the country and all over the world. I now have clients in England and Australia and where else? I'm seeing a guy later today from Greece, and it's just been really cool because I get so many leads from YouTube, and I open up the Zoom meeting initially and it's like, ooh, who's going to be on the other side? And I get to hear all kinds of accents, and I get to engage with different people living very different lives than I am. And it's fun.
So I am curious about the difference between like your job as a physical therapist, and obviously you have a background in psychology too, but particularly with the physical therapy aspect, how is it different meeting people in person versus online? Because I would imagine like in person, you can move their limbs around, and then online it seems like there's a layer of separation. So how have you kind of adjusted to that?
I would say I had a head start when I busted my thumb in a ski injury in 2016, and I had a cast on my hand for 3 months. And so I actually got a head start in my hands-off skills during that time period. So when the pandemic hit and we were all, forced or invited, however you want to talk about it, into telehealth, I felt very confident in my ability to do non-physical physical therapy. And the last 2.5 years, 2 years of the pandemic and so much telehealth has really reinforced this exciting possibility that I really doubted, that we can change the physical body without physical contact. And I find that to be very exciting because it just opens up the mind and possibilities, and it gets us out of a box of how we think, because we can learn to change our experience in the body, including pain and movement, through the interface like this non-physical shared space. Like, it can change. And so for me, I really lean into the power of connection. When I yawn, you yawn, like those mirror neurons and resonance circuitry, like we are connected, even when we're not physically touching. And so the last 2 years has really bolstered my strength and belief in whatever that mechanism is, that interconnectedness of all things. And we can change things in ways that we didn't know possible before, which is very exciting.
So I guess for an example, let's say I'm a client. I live in Greece. I don't have a Greek accent, but whatever. So I live in Greece. I spend too much time sitting at the computer. I'm hunched over. My posture is kind of like this. And I've come to you for help. Help. My back hurts. My neck hurts.
Yeah.
What do I do? How do you walk through that with somebody online or even offline?
This is another gift of telehealth. I have to teach you to be more of a scientist of your own body, right? Because I'm not there to touch and feel what's going on. I need to teach you how to touch and feel what's going on inside of you. So if somebody in Greece with, say, neck or back pain from sitting too much comes to me over telehealth, okay, let's get a baseline assessment of how you feel, how you move. Let's get some objective numbers. And then let's have you do something, move your body, have a new understanding, shift something, change something, breathe in a different way, move in a different way. And then we go back to the initial data. And then you reassess, how are you thinking? How are you feeling? What are you experiencing? How are you moving? So I have to train you, the recipient, to be able to measure data and collect information before and after an intervention. And that's how we know what works. So that's a very broad stroke. I could get more into details of treatment for neck or back pain, which I won't right now. And I have a bunch of videos. And if you want me to say more about that, I can.
Sure. No, it's all good. Yeah, that makes sense. Like you kind of have to walk somebody through. And I guess ultimately, right, the goal here is to teach people how to do these things on their own. So online is kind of like that layer of separation is there. But at the end of the day, you're really just sharing information and walking people through certain things. And I liked what you said about like changing something, either changing your posture or changing your breath. And it is amazing like how profound and how much that works. And you did have a video where you kind of explained like the situation of like you often hear if you're trying to relax that you should change your breath, like you should breathe more slowly. And I know several years ago, I was one of those kind of frustrated people where I wanted to change my breathing because I heard that it helped, but it didn't quite, I don't know, it like kind of helped, but kind of didn't, and I didn't know what I was doing. So then your video kind of hit the nail on the head. Like it kind of rewinded me back in time when you were sharing what it might be like to not feel comfortable with your breath and like what that even means. And I think that perspective is valuable for people because I don't know, every time somebody is like, yes, breathe slowly, breathe in, then out, then in, then out. But without like any kind of explanation or caveat that this might be difficult for you, it can be frustrating and it can have like the opposite effect. So it seems like you're good at listening to people and I guess their frustrations when things aren't working. Like the normal techniques, you kind of maybe have to guide somebody a little more. Whereas I'm sure some people learn instantly. But yeah, I appreciated that. That's what I'm trying to say. So have you always been kind of, I guess, a deep thinker? Did that come naturally to you? Was there a certain event in your life that triggered that? Where does this come from?
I would say it's naturally how I am, and it was something that took me a long time to accept about myself. I was a freshman in college and I signed up for a philosophy class and I dropped it after day one because I said, I don't care why the tree is there. It's just there. Give me something I can measure. I want data. And so I actually, for many years, sort of denied that deep thinking part of myself because one can lead themselves into crazy, dark vortexes and wormholes that can get quite existential. So I try to put my boundaries around that. But I needed science and data and measurable information. And so I found a way to kind of embrace this brand mullet where I have science in the front and spirit in the back, and I need them both to make it work. Like I have a left hemisphere that likes practical, tactical, strategic data, and I have a right hemisphere that's very creative and innovative. And as I've been able to integrate the two, I've been able to take that deep thinking part of my nature, not get lost in it, and then bring it up to the surface where it can actually be applicable and make somebody's daily life easier or better. Because that's why I got into the work that I do. Is I like to support people. I like to help, and I like to make things better. And not everybody has the time or desire to do the deep thinking. And the deep thinking serves me well when it comes to pain and the mind and the body, because these things are deep and wide and vast. And my brain's just really gotten good at connecting seemingly unconnected, unrelated things and making more sense of somebody's world for them.
Right on. I think like combining that sort of logic and intuition is super important in general, I would say. But I've tried to do that as well over the years. To a certain extent, I think I've succeeded, making these YouTube videos. You have to be creative, but you also have to think things through enough to make sure that what you're putting out is good and is should be out there. I guess, like, do you have any advice for somebody who is trying to combine their intellectual side with their intuitive side? I have some advice of my own, but I am curious to hear it from your mouth, because your channel seems to be on that magical line there.
This might sound a bit esoteric and out there, but it does come from a scientific place. I think for me, what works best is sort of personifying these two parts of myself. And I've got my logical scientist, and that part of me wears a white coat and glasses, and she's got her hair in a little tight bun. And, she likes the lines and staying in them, but she's also just curious enough, to have this relationship with this other part of me that's sort of this, like, have you ever seen Grace and Frankie? It's a television show. Yeah. So, like, imagine this, like, weird voodoo gypsy woman with flowing dresses and magical potions. Like, I have those two parts within me, and they both know about one another, and they both respect one another and listen to one another, because each has gifts, strengths, talents, wisdom, and, weaknesses and shortcomings. And so when those two parts of me, when I have them like as two parts of me that can interact and work together, things work well. And I think, for somebody, if they want a little more something concrete, it's just imagining like you have a right hemisphere in your brain and a left hemisphere in your brain. And you have this thing called the corpus callosum. And it's a big group of nerves that connects the right and left hemisphere. So just this society has become very logical heavy in many ways, where it's very biased towards the left hemisphere. And our left hemisphere is actually growing in certain areas and the right is shrinking. And so the more we can remember that we have these two parts of our brain, everybody has it. Even if you feel disconnected or you're not expressing it, you literally have both sides of your brain within you. So surely it's possible to be able to remember the physical structure and, they both exist. And then living into that reality sort of opens up the gate for it to emerge and express itself more.
Definitely. And I think this may sound abstract to some people, but I do think engaging with your intuition is super important because, as you said, our society tends to be more left brain focused, more like intellectually focused. And that can be useful, but what ends up happening with that is you can often overthink things, you can overanalyze things. Whereas if you're acting with your intuition more, then you're kind of flowing with it. You're not stressing the details, but obviously your intellect is still firing and kind of having thoughts, but you want that to be more in the background, or as Alan Watts puts it, the intellect is a good servant and a bad master. You don't want a billion thoughts racing in your head every second. You more want to be clear-headed and to only have thoughts that serve you. So I think finding the balance between intellect and intuition is the key here. And it's also useful for YouTube. Like, as I kind of said earlier, over the years, I've tried to bridge the gap between these two things with various things, whether it's meditation, even just like exercise, kind of, pushing through the, I don't want to do it type thoughts, ends up clearing your mind of a lot of kind of BS thoughts that don't need to be there.
Can I interrupt? Because I just had this cool idea about how to integrate the two. Like, you're sitting in front of your camera, you're sitting in front of your computer, right? We can go really heady. And what I was thinking about is like the instinct in the gut. And so many people like have all these gut problems. And, maybe on one level it's possible we have these gut problems because it's calling out for us to start listening more to that gut instinct. And so the idea that I had is, what if you actually connect, one hand to your head and one hand to your stomach, and just notice that connection and notice that they're both here.
Whoa. I am noticing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm instantly more calm right now, connecting with both my head and my gut, and seeing you do the same on the other side. Like, I'm dropped into presence, like crazy good.
Yeah. It's interesting how just putting your hand on your body in a certain spot brings attention to it.
Yeah. And you can play with, where do you want the hand? Does it want to be on a certain place? Like, do you want to hold it in a certain way on the belly or the head? And like offering support to yourself, from yourself. Yeah. It feels kind of nice, right? And then we're tuned into a different set of circuits within ourselves. And then we're putting out that different set of circuits in the world. And I think that's a big part of why my YouTube channel has worked, because I didn't do anything intentionally to grow it. It just grew of its own accord. But I think it's because I know how to tap into that energy and then funnel it into a camera. Mm-hmm. So thank you for the inspiration on that idea.
Yeah. You're welcome. That is one thing I've noticed in your videos. You just said that you're sort of putting that energy out there. You're putting that energy into your videos. You do seem very present when the camera is rolling, which I always say is the most important thing when it comes to making videos, is especially if you're going to be on camera, like having that presence of mind is key. It keeps people engaged and it makes them trust you more, and it shows authenticity, which is great. So I am curious, like you said, your strategy, I mean, it's not really a strategy, but all you do is you put that energy into your channel. So like, do you have an overall philosophy for your YouTube channel that keeps you going? Is it simply just, I want to put this vibe out here today? Most of your videos seem to be like back pain relief while sitting with cat-cow exercise. Like, most videos are just an exercise, but I'm curious, what goes into you deciding what to upload?
When I am working with people, and I've listened and watched and been with people in pain, physical, emotional, social pain for 2+ decades. So I can sit and listen, and I can pattern recognize. And when I see something that really helps somebody in my office, virtual or in person, I'm like, oh, I feel this inspiration. And it is very, like, it's a feeling, it's an instinct, like, oh, this is this is inspiring. This would help other people. And then I do a head check. Does this make sense? Is this interesting? Is this a good title? Like, when my head and heart, or gut and head both are like, yes, we have experience with this. Yes, this works. Would this add value to more people? If yes, then I put it out there. And I pay attention, right? Like, what language do people like? What titles, what length of video? I listen to the feedback that I'm getting, and people love the short, tight 3 to 5 minute exercises. One tool, doesn't take long. It works. It's like a sniper exercise. Like, you can take out the pain problem in one shot. And so that's what I tend to put out there. Then when I find something else interesting and I think it might add value, I'll put it out there. Maybe a longer interview, or maybe a more philosophical thought concept to percolate and consider. And so then I think I get the majority of people from the short, tight 3 to 5 minute videos. And then if they're engaged and they want more, then they can go more, or go to my website, or, purchase something from me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think the short videos are helpful because there's no fluff really. It's all, this is the exercise, this is the idea behind it. Let's do it. Here's how it works. There's a lot of YouTube tutorials out there where I'm sure you've watched them yourself, where it's like how to do blah blah blah, and it's 5 minutes that has nothing to do with blah 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 until they finally get to it, and it can be kind of annoying. But when you're just getting to the point, I think people tend to appreciate that more. And I'm sure it helps, get clients, and just I guess keep people watching your channel, because they don't feel like you're trying to to manipulate them, or just make them watch longer with fluff, because I don't know, it definitely annoys me.
I do value efficiency, and I made that term up, a sniper stretch. Like, this one thing will solve your problem in one shot. That doesn't apply to all problems across the board for all people. But if somebody's suffering and struggling with something, and you can change that or teach them how to change it for themselves, whew, that's awesome. It's a good feeling for everybody. So that's what I'm trying to promote more of in the world.
For sure. And so how long have you been doing YouTube?
YouTube, I don't know, 2019, I think I started. I started actually on Facebook in 2016, just making little videos. And I probably was practicing making videos for from 2014 to 2016, and never did anything with them. I just needed reps getting in front of a camera, and getting comfortable and getting authentic and natural and present. Because something happens when you get a camera in front of you. I watch people just choke up and freeze, and I've been there myself. So a lot of it was, reps. So YouTube 2019, but many years of practice before that.
So you were posting to Facebook before that?
Yeah, it was the medium that I felt comfortable with. And like I told you, I was just making these little videos of my thoughts and suggestions on my phone. And then, my first big brave step was Facebook, because that was the lowest hanging fruit that I could reach. And then I needed that friend of mine to encourage me to go to the next higher up hanging fruit, which was YouTube.
So I'm curious, how was posting videos to Facebook? Were you noticing traction? I've never really tried to grow by posting videos to Facebook. What was that experience like?
Well, Facebook really didn't have any transference over to YouTube, just to be clear about that. It was just a practice of making a video and putting it out in the world. When I started on, now I don't even know if I remember your question. I'll answer it and then we'll see how I did. With YouTube, putting it out there, I was just putting it out there and then going and living my life. And so the vagus nerve reset video, which just hit 1 million views, I think it was at 10 or 12,000 views, and I didn't even know it. I just wasn't tracking it. I was busy living my life, And so I threw up a video and it did well. I'm like, oh, right? And then when something's interesting, I start paying more attention to it. And that's how that all grew. Did I answer your question?
Sort of. My question was just like how posting videos to Facebook was, and like
Oh.
kind of how that whole system even works.
I had
Like
to.
it seems like
I had to
YouTube has been better
learn.
for you.
YouTube's been way better for me. I have gotten clients from Facebook, but it's just, brand awareness for the most part with Facebook. But YouTube got clients. And at first it was so I was tense. Even just thinking about it, I'm tensing my neck and like tightening up, So it's like, ooh, relax. It's safe. There's nothing dangerous about moving one video to another place in the Ethernet,
Right.
internet windows of the World Wide Web.
Yeah, it can be weird shifting platforms. It can feel like it's kind of like moving, you got to uproot your life and you kind of wonder, am I making the right decision? Is all this work for something? But sometimes, yes, I don't know. If your main thing is on Facebook, for anybody listening, I would recommend moving to YouTube. The ecosystem seems a lot better. I think the algorithms on YouTube are also just designed much better. As far as I know, the Facebook algorithm still is about views for the most part. Like if a video gets more views, then it will get more views, whereas YouTube is based on watch time. So if a video is getting lots of watch time, then it's more likely to do well on YouTube, which I think is a healthier system. It is better at quantifying good, whereas Facebook, I always feel like Facebook is more, I don't know, they're just kind of, they seem more mischievous or something, but that's just my opinion. Anyway, not trying to talk trash on Facebook here. So you've been doing YouTube since 2019. That's about 3 years now. You've reached about 30,000 subscribers after 3 years. Like how has this been for you? Do you feel different now that you've achieved some level of YouTube success? Do things feel the same? Do you feel more excited to get up in the morning? Because the reason I ask, I think a lot of people, they're like, man, if I just had 10,000 subscribers, if I had 1,000 subscribers, if I had anybody paying attention to me, then everything would be awesome. How has this felt for you?
It's felt amazing. Honestly, it's just, I think there's a deep human need for us all to be seen and to be heard and to be celebrated. And so on a very primal level, having more subscribers has increased my visibility, which means I'm being seen. So on a very deep human level, that feels good. It also feels good to the parts of me that like to, be of service. Like, oh, look, there's more people. At times, it's definitely uncomfortable because then there's this pressure that I put on myself, an expectation to perform and deliver, and fear of disappointment and fear of failure and fear of rejection. So I wouldn't say it's 100% lovely, wonderful unicorn, happy fairy tales, but I don't think anything in life is. And the way I view it is if, the pros outweigh the con, the good outweighs the bad, I'm going to keep doing it. So it feels, the net sum total is that it feels good.
I also agree with that as far as my experience with YouTube. Sometimes it can be weird and crazy to get all this attention. It can feel overwhelming, or I'm sure you get negative comments, and for whatever reason, those tend to stick with us more than positive comments. And so in that sense, I think the attention can be strange. But as you said, we do have a deep human need to feel celebrated or valued. So I think when our ideas or what we're putting out there is getting attention, there is something validating about that. And that is, I'd say overall, as long as you're being careful about it, which clearly we both are, then it should be a good thing. It should feel nice. And I think that is the feeling that maybe people want to feel when they're imagining what YouTube success might feel like.
Yeah. And you bring up a really valid point about the negative comments. I've definitely learned to practice the muscle of, water off a duck's back. And also looking at the negative comment, is there anything true, valid, or helpful here? because I don't want to miss that nugget. Like, oh yeah, that's actually a really, not kindly way of expressing a fair point. Let me do that next time. Or, oh God, that stung straight in there. Is that touching a subconscious belief that I have about myself that was in my subconscious, and it would serve me well to let it come up to the conscious, so that I can look at it and say, do I actually want this? Is this serving me? And then I can, do my own process to let it go. So the negative comments, they really can suck, but they are also an opportunity for growth and expansion and evolution, and also an opportunity to let go of stuff inside of you that might not be serving you, that you didn't know was there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and with negative comments, there are some that are clearly just meant to be mean. Like this is somebody who is not happy with their life, and they are trying to make you not happy with your life. But there are also comments that are constructive criticism. They seem well thought out. They seem like they're not trying to be negative. They're actually trying to be helpful, or even like critical in a thought-provoking way. And I think those are the negative comments that you're referring to here, where you're asking, is there anything helpful here? And sometimes the answer is yes. And it's not necessarily easy to tell the difference, especially if you're having a bad day and you're taking things personally. I've definitely had days like that where even though a comment wasn't meant to hurt my feelings, probably it was hard to deal with because my day was already bad enough as it was. And I think, YouTube, it, when you open yourself up to thousands of people, you don't necessarily know what is going to be coming into your information stream that day. Anybody from anywhere can comment on any of your videos for any reason. And that can throw us for a loop for sure.
Yeah. I'm just shaking my body because it's a little uncomfortable talking about all of that hard stuff.
I totally get it. And the camera's disabled right now, but it's fine. It's still recording.
Yeah.
We're dealing with some lag here, people, and the conversation is still going great though. So okay, I have a question for you. Is there one thing that you could kind of recommend to most people who they have an office job and they just kind of need something that they can do that's relatively easy to, I guess, keep their posture better, to feel better. So they're sitting too much and they just need a little something to adjust themselves. Is there like a simple thing somebody can do?
There's a simple thing somebody can do. The prerequisite to that is that they remember to do it. So, in order to remember to do it, set a timer or listen to your Apple Watch when it tells you to get up, or if your body's hurting, right? Let that be the indicator. So you're asking me a question, but there's the prerequisite before I can ethically deliver a good, conscientious sniper strategy tool. Like, you got to remember to do it, because I can give you the best tool in the world. If you don't do it, it does you no good. I like to do what's called like a pulse check. When I go to see an acupuncturist, they check my pulse, and that gives them a lot of information about what's happening inside of me. So when we're sitting all day, all of our attention, pretty much most, if not all the time, is on something outside of our body. And so I invite people to bring their attention and awareness back to their own body. What does that mean? What does that look like? Well, remember that you have a body, right? And take a moment to feel your seat and your feet and connect to the chair, to the floor. And then you just do like, okay, well, what's happening? What state of affairs is my body even in? Safe or danger, right? Stressed or calm? And there's no right or wrong answer. Just the awareness is the intervention, because I'm watching you on this camera and seeing a subtle shift in your breathing pattern as I'm seeing you check in with your own body. So it's like, oh, you are here, right? The body's going, oh, you do care about me. You are paying attention to me. And then once you're aware of what's happening in the body, then you can make a shift and an adjustment, right? You can grow tall and long in your spine and imagine that your head is a balloon. You can imagine your pelvic floor as it's making contact with the chair that you're sitting on. And there's like a geyser or a water fountain coming straight up your pelvic floor in the middle of your body, through your spine, up and out the top of your head, right? Just growing kind of long and tall. If you've been forward and flexed too long, you can go backward and extend and, lift up your chest and look towards the ceiling, right? Go the other direction from the sitting forward flexed posture. So I'm a big fan of the pulse check, because then it can guide you of, okay, what's the impulse on what to do given the state of affairs as things are in any given moment?
Oh, that idea of presence seems very important. Like for you to sort of understand what your body is actually feeling seems probably, as you said, it's like the prerequisite, the precursor. Like, what do you even know what is wrong, or do you just know that something is wrong? And in exercise to kind of induce that understanding, I see the benefit to that, the value.
Yeah, it's such a valid point. Like, I could tell you what to do, but it may or may not be helpful, because that may or may not be what you need. Like, I can tell you, do this next exercise or do this shoulder movement, but that may or may not be what you need. You're going to know better what you need in any given moment than anybody else outside of you. And I think that's why sometimes I struggle with that question of what's one thing to do? Well, I don't know. What's the need? I can't tell you what to do in any given moment because I don't know what the missing need is. You are going to know that better than anybody.
And it seems like you can also kind of walk people through how to figure that out as well.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. It's surprising how grounding that can be. So I guess bringing things back to YouTube, one thing I like to ask people is if you have one piece of advice for how to do well on YouTube to achieve the kind of success you have, what would that advice be?
Listen to both sides of your brain. Listen to the instincts that you have on what feels in alignment for you to do. And then listen to the logic that can guide you on how to structure and schedule and organize and practically deliver something that adds value to others in the world. And be a go-giver. Not a go-getter, but a go-giver.
I like it. I dig it. I think, combining that intuition and logic is key to being consistent and even just making the best stuff that you can. It's both sides of the brain, as you put it, are crucially important. So yes, Dr. Renee Ostertag, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been a wonderful conversation. And why don't you tell people like where they can find you, promote whatever it is that you would like to promote.
Thank you. Well, I have my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Renee Ostertag. My business is Green Tree Mind, www.greentreemind.com. And I'm super excited. I'm going to be launching a nervous system ninja program in July. It's going to have a 6-quarter rollout. And that's not ready yet, but in July it will be. And the website for that will be ns-ninja.com. And I'm on social media, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. I don't have anything beyond that right now.
No. Okay. Well, right on. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you so much for your time. And for those listening, thank you for joining. And I will see you in the next one. Bye, everybody.